Hi, everyone. I'm your host, Patty Giarrusso, and this is Let's Talk Pets on Society Bites Radio. Today, we welcome back Kathy Poblowski from Lost Dogs of America. And today, we're going to talk a little bit about vacations and pet sitters and lost pets, because both Kathy and I know that during the summer, when most people go on vacation, they need sitters for their pets. And not all of the pet sitters that people hire are professional pet sitters. And when you hire the kid down the street or your cousin or your friend, sometimes they don't know what to do and how to keep your pet safe. So Kathy and I are going to talk about that today because it's an important topic, because we see many, many lost pets due to people that are sitting that aren't doing it the right way, I guess. So welcome to the show, Kathy.
Thanks, Patty. Thanks for having me. And
Yeah.
I think this is such an important topic. And I had just shot out a little message to the volunteers before we came on the air here, just to let them know that I was doing the radio show, so don't ping me while I'm trying to talk and sort of thing. And I just talked about the topic. I said we're going to talk about pet sitters, and we have caseworkers around the state, and
Hmm.
within a minute, four of our caseworkers came on and said, one actually in Milwaukee said that she estimates a full third of her cases have gone missing from pet sitters.
I
And
know.
then the others chimed in and said, yeah, it's just a huge problem where they are too. And so I'm just really glad we're talking about this, because I just think it's way more common than people realize.
It is. And it's funny. Well, it's not funny, but it was a good story today that I saw one of the stories pop up that a cat was reunited 2 years later thanks to its microchip, and it was lost when it was being watched by a
Yeah.
pet sitter. And we're not talking about the professional pet sitters, the ones that really know what they're doing, although there are these new apps that have pet sitters that are not really professional pet sitters. So we don't want our professional pet sitters to get offended in any way. So
Right, absolutely, absolutely. Because there are people out there that really do know what they're doing and take it very seriously. But like you said, there's these apps that are popping up, and it's very easy for somebody now to get into the pet sitting business, and and get. And I just played around with one before we came on, also just to see how easy it would be for me to find a pet sitter in the area, and it was very easy. And of
mhm,
course, they all have a couple of reviews underneath them, which sound wonderful, but I don't know who wrote those reviews.
right.
I don't know if it was their friend or their mother or their brother, or that gave them a glowing review. So I would be very, very leery about just hiring somebody from an app.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, we've both heard the horror stories of the lost pets by that.
Hmm.
And I don't, I'm not really sure why it happens so much, other than the fact that maybe the people don't have their own pets, or I don't know why it is, but some common sense, I guess, I don't know, tips or whatever.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
it is to us, it's pretty common sense, but maybe not to everyone.
yeah. And I think it's very stressful to the dog. Like you think, okay, and we're talking like now. I'm talking about like if you have the pet sitter come to your home while you're on vacation, and so I think a lot of people think, oh, okay, well this is really cool because I'm not having to take my dog to a kennel, so he's going to be more comfortable in his own home. But I still think it's very stressful because now you have a stranger, possibly a stranger coming to the door, maybe just not coming in, the garage door or however you may come in, and I think it's stressful for the dog,
Mm-hmm.
um, and we don't take that into account when we're making arrangements to have somebody come. That
Right.
they should try to do things as close as possible to how you would do them, plus with extra precautions, of course. That that to take into account the fact that they are strange, and the
Right.
dog probably doesn't know them as well.
So if we had somebody listening to us right now that was going on vacation and having a friend watch their pet, what would you tell them that they need to do to prepare for that?
Well, I think first and foremost is, do you feel that this person is responsible enough to do this? Really ask yourself that hard question. I mean, I think of it as, almost as if you were hiring a babysitter for your children. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
this is a serious responsibility. And not saying that, the teenager down the street or whatever can't do a great job, because they probably can. But, just really, really ask that hard question is, are they going to treat it with the seriousness that it needs to be treated with? This is your family member that you're entrusting with them. And then, I would first of all, set them up for success. So, make sure that that you're using, like, I would suggest, I think you even talked about this one time, about using double barriers,
Mm-hmm.
So if they're coming in, maybe have them come in through the garage door and then close the garage door behind them and then go into the house. So if the dog does slip out, that the dog is then contained in the garage.
Right.
Things like that. Make sure that as they enter the yard, that they close the gate behind them and make sure it's firmly latched before they enter the house. And then just set some really strong ground rules. This is how you're going to walk my dog. You're going to put my dog harness and leash on, and put two, leashes on, one on the collar. One on the collar and one on the harness. And that's how you're going to walk. And yeah, maybe it's going to take a little bit more time, but that's the rule when you're looking after my pet.
Right.
Never, that before you leave, of course, you're going to make sure that your microchip is up to date and that your collar has visible ID tags attached and to the collar. I'm sure you've got some really good ideas there too, but I just think that you just really you have to really seriously think about it and
Right.
try to think about everything that could possibly happen.
Yeah. Yeah, checking the gates and just being aware if there's a lawn person or a pool person coming, that you double check the gates after they leave. It's just it's something that I think that when somebody's sitting someone else's dogs, they just don't think about it as much as the owner does, because they're not used to having that pet. And so you almost would have to make sure you write a pretty thorough list of everything to do, even though it might sound a little bit stupid. You can't be careful enough, I guess, is what the point is. And some people probably think, oh, they know that, but they don't. And we see it too often. Like you said, I can't believe that when you just said the number of people or cases that that one lady had. That's a lot, and I do know that we've had a lot. And one of the problems that we see, that I'm sure you see, is a pet sitter doesn't feel sometimes that they need to tell the owner, hopefully they'll get the pet back sooner or whatever, but they're not prepared and they don't have a picture of the pet to provide if the pet goes missing. They don't have the microchip number, or they don't have the necessary information. Is the pet neuters, is spayed, how old is it, do they really even know the color of it or the markings on it? So those are all things that in preparation of a pet sitting job, that the pet sitter should be prepared with, have all that emergency information ready just in the event, and make sure that you contact the owner if the pet does go missing.
Now we've seen that a lot, where if it's somebody like a pet sitter that's trying to do it as a profession, they are worried that it's going to ruin their reputation, so they're hoping to get the dog back without ever having to tell the owner, because of course they don't want the negativity. Or in other cases, it's a family member. They're so embarrassed that the pet went missing, they don't want to tell the owner, or they don't want to ruin the owner's vacation,
Right.
And so they delay. And And like you said, they're not prepared. They don't have all that information on hand. And so then by the time they do get around to filing a report and, getting to work, trying to distribute flyers or whatever, they're already behind the 8 ball because the dog's been missing a couple of days.
Right.
So I had one. It just reminded me of a case that I had a couple of years ago where the pet sitter was responsible at first, and the owner was away for quite a long time, and he was coming in the back gate like he was always supposed to do, closing the gate and then going in the back door. But on one particular day, he came with a friend, and he was in a bit of a hurry. And he just thought, well, I'm just going to walk the dog really quick, and then we're going to go off and do whatever he was going to do with his friend. And instead of going to the back way like he always had, he just went to the front door, opened the front door with the key, and the dog was gone. Just that quick. And he was mortified, and he was very good. The report was right away. And the dog was caught about 10 days later, but it ruined the owner's vacation, and it could have ended in tragedy. Luckily, it didn't.
Right. Yeah, and just that what you mentioned about the double barrier thing, that's a hugely important part of watching a pet, making sure that there is that double barrier, whether it be a gate or, like you said, coming in through the garage and then into the house, and making sure all the doors are shut before you make that next step into, make sure that garage door shuts before you open the next door, just in case for some reason that dog is sitting by that door. You don't know. And when we were talking about making sure that the pet sitter has all the microchip information, it's also really an important part to provide a list of the local shelters, as part of the emergency contact list, so that if in the event something did happen, the person sitting would know who to contact, because many people don't know. They don't know, who do I call if I've lost a pet, especially if they don't have a pet.
Right. Yes, lots of things to think about, but like you said, I just don't think people can be too careful. I had an experience with a pet sitter many years ago in Texas, and did not end up being a good experience when I found out that she was basically opening the door and letting my dog out to go potty without a leash or anything. And when I was at home, that would be like, because we lived we had invisible fence and we lived in a pretty secure area or whatever. That is how I did it. But under no circumstance was she supposed to do that. But she would just be in a hurry, and that's what she would do. And that was I was into that pet sitter when I found out that she was doing that. How do you feel about cameras, like nanny cams? Would you suggest to somebody that they actually, these little cameras now are so inexpensive and work so well. We actually have one for watching our dogs in the house, just an amusing sort of a thing. But literally could very easily be set up to watch a pet sitter just to see what's happening, because I know that there have been some pretty horrific stories come out lately about hired pet sitters that have been found to be either abusing the dog or negligent in what they were supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. And almost, because I too have the same thing. We have 2 cameras, one outside showing our pool, and then one inside that we can see a good part of the house. So we check on the dogs if we're out for dinner or just gone on the boat for the day or something. And I almost wonder about saying, hey, we have cameras in here, just so they know that there's cameras in there, so they do the right thing. Maybe.
Yeah, that's
I don't know.
Very true. Yep.
Yeah.